Hey everybody, and thanks for checking out our video on the 10 facts you never knew about the San Antonio Spurs 12th overall draft pick, Joshua Primo. Hey, make sure you stick around until the end of the video to find out how analysts felt about the Spurs selection. Let's start it off with number 10. Josh Primo ended up playing for the Canadian men's basketball national team back in 2019. He joined them as part of the FIBA U19 World Cup that was located in Crete, Greece. This is even more shocking when you find out that Primo was just 16 years old at the time of the competition and yet was able to hold his own against players a couple years older than he was. Now, he only got about 11 minutes per game throughout that tournament, and he averaged just 4.2 points, but he did have a nice 8.3 assists showing against Senegal. That matchup was in the round of 16. Canada didn't really get much further than that as they finished the competition in 8th place. And as you probably could have guessed, the United States ended up winning that competition handily. Moving on now to number 9, he used to be teammates with JT Thor. Thor is another player who got selected in the 2021 NBA draft going to the Charlotte Hornets. However, not many people know that he and Primo shared the same roster at one point. They both attended Huntington Prep over in, you guessed it, Huntington, West Virginia during the 2018 season. Although the combination didn't last very long as both Thor and Primo left the club to go elsewhere. Thor went to attend Norcross High School in Georgia, while Primo rolled with Royal Crown Academic School in Scarborough, Ontario. That Huntington Prep basketball program also happened to shut down completely just a year after that. They didn't close down without leaving some good reviews for Primo and Thor, though. Arkell Bruce, the former head coach of their basketball team, praised Primo pretty heavily, saying that he was a versatile, athletic, slender player who could shoot the ball at a high level. Coming in at number 8, talent seems to run in the Primo family. His sister, Keisha, played college basketball herself. Keisha played for the Buffalo Bulls women's basketball team back in the 2008 season. She wore number 1 on her jersey, but was unfortunately a part of a losing season. The team went just 8-24 overall and were a disappointing 2-14 against opponents in the Mid-American Conference. She ended up leaving that team after that one season though, and played for Coffeyville Community College for a year after that. There was some decent success there, which opened up opportunities to move forward. So Keisha jumped into Division II Southern Connecticut State University and joined the women's basketball team for 3 full seasons. She played from the years 2010 all the way to 2014, with the latter being her best year. She held yearly averages of 13.5 points, 4.4 rebounds, 2.9 assists, and 2 steals per game in 22 contests. That would be enough to get her an honorable mention on the 2014 Northeast 10 All-Conference team. Which, now that I'm saying that out loud, it doesn't sound as good as it looks on paper. Let's move on now to number 7. Primo sadly lost his mother at an early age. His mother, Sandra, defined what it's like to be a fighter as she battled an illness. She lost her life on November 26, 2012, and it devastated the rest of her family. Primo, his sister, and his father have continued to live on in her honor and take every moment that they can in order to cherish her and remember her. Earlier in the year, Primo scored 12 points in a win over Kentucky on January 12th, and he then tweeted out 12 points on the 12th day. Happy birthday, Mom. Love you forever. Losing a loved one is never easy, and my thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. Coming in at number 6, Primo had to reclassify to the 2020 class so that he could graduate early from high school. It was an interesting move, one that had NBA teams questioning whether or not to draft him due to how young he was just a couple months ago. However, it didn't seem to matter one bit. Not only did the San Antonio Spurs still draft him with a 12th overall selection in the first round, but they did so confidently. Some players could do something like this and have trouble keeping up with older competition, but it didn't seem to affect him at all. Primo was a 5-star recruit by 24/7 Sports and had a number of collegiate offers, including Alabama and Creighton. Ultimately, Primo went with Alabama and turned down Creighton, a decision that probably helped him out in the long run. This was the reason he was one of the youngest college basketball players in history. At number 5, he spent only 1 season at Alabama, but was pretty good during it. In that freshman season, he averaged 8.1 points and 3.4 rebounds and was named to the Southeastern Conference All-Freshman team. He got that award despite the fact that he had to miss 3 games due to a left MCL sprain that he suffered in the middle of the season. He declared for the draft pretty early, on April 21st to be exact. Some thought it might be a mistake because it could look as though he wasn't prepared at all for the big stage. I mean, he graduated early from high school and only spent 1 year with Alabama. So he's only 18 years old, but he wanted to see what he could do at the NBA Combine, which, by the way, he performed incredibly well at and got a lot of scouts interested in what he could do on the court. In fact, Josh felt that he impressed enough people to get drafted, even if it was in the second round, so he opted not to withdraw his name from the draft list. Be sure to stick around until the end of the video to find out why Primo was graded so low for his draft position. Moving on now to number 4. Primo had some comparisons to Malik Beasley, Gary Trent Jr., and Derek White coming into the draft. As a matter of fact, I saw one scout even compare him to Devin Booker a couple weeks prior to draft day. Josh Primo has the work ethic that you'd want out of a very young player who doesn't have a lot of experience to work with. He doesn't have the best handles in the world, nor does he have insane playmaking abilities, but he does thrive in a scoring role. The catch-and-shoot game is definitely there, and he could be a secondary playmaker for a contending team. These are all reasons as to why he was compared to these players. Malik Beasley was drafted at a young age too, and had all the talent in the world. He just couldn't grasp the defensive rotations that the Denver Nuggets were trying to run due to inexperience, which caused his exit. Will Barton is a similar player on the same team, and Gary Trent is one of those fantastic catch-and-shoot young guys that always puts his heart into the game. Booker is a far better player and could be Primo's ceiling, to be honest, but Devin played the secondary ball handler role with Chris Paul alongside him in the backcourt. Primo would be just like that if he's able to develop the way that people expect. Coming in at number 3, his scoring has been blanketed in recent years. I mentioned before that he thrives in a scoring role, and that might not sound correct when you look at his 8.1 points per game average at Alabama. However, he ended up being the 4th option on that Alabama squad offensively. It didn't matter how good he was or how good he could be during that freshman season. Guys like Jaden Shackelford, senior John Petty, and the redshirt sophomore Javon Quinterly were already established guards when Primo joined the rotation, and it was incredibly hard for him to create good shot opportunities without it seeming too forced. Luckily, that Alabama team was able to have a decent amount of success so that more NBA scouts got to check him out as the season progressed, but Alabama didn't really use him to the best of their abilities. I think we need to look out for Primo offensively in the next couple years, as he could really thrive in a bigger role with a team that desperately needs some more scorers. Next up at number 2, Joshua Primo is a more than capable perimeter defender despite his smaller frame. His strength isn't what NBA teams were hoping it would be, but he does sit at 6'5" with a 6'9" wingspan, and that length gives him the ability to guard multiple positions on the floor, and his quickness helps him keep up with smaller guards. He always closes off the driving lanes well, and he tries to keep his feet moving at all times, though probably the best part of his defensive game is that he just doesn't foul that often. Teams are always stressing the importance of defending without fouling, and Primo displays that brilliantly. During his one college season, he played 674 total minutes of action, and in that time, he picked up just 50 fouls. That's an absolutely insanely low number for a guard who normally defends the player with the basketball. Although Primo has been great off the ball on defense also, he has no stamina issues and can run around with players, and he's lanky enough to slip through screen after screen. That's something that's wildly valuable nowadays, with teams loving those off-ball screens in order to get their three-point shooters open. Finally, we've made it to number 1. The San Antonio Spurs were bashed for their selection of Primo, even though he's got tremendous upside. Now, obviously, when you're the youngest player in the draft by far with limited playing time on a decent team, NBA squads don't typically look at you that early in the first round. But the Spurs just didn't want to wait before taking Primo. Joshua himself said this after he found out he was going to San Antonio. Going that high wasn't something that I don't know if I was ready for that. I didn't realize it was going to be that high, but I'm glad it's with the Spurs. He later said that San Antonio was exactly the place that he wanted to be right when he left the Combine, and it worked out perfectly for him. Experts, on the other hand, didn't feel like the fit was that good. 3 experts over at CBS Sports all kept Primo out of their first round in mock drafts, and nobody expected him to go that early at all. One of those experts, Gary Parrish, even gave the draft pick a C+ grade. And that grade was actually tied for worst in the first round out of all 30 selections. Here's what Parrish had to say regarding the selection under the grade. "This is the biggest reach of the draft so far, but Primo is only 18 and he is a shooter. Even so, I'd probably go a lower grade if this were a different franchise than San Antonio. He simply has not had the track record of other prospects still available in terms of his production in college." Personally, I think Parrish is being pretty harsh here, but then again, the Spurs know more about this kid than we do when it comes to basketball, so we're all just going to have to sit back and remember where he is. The Spurs are an excellent franchise with great player development, and I think the pick was surprising, but it's going to be worth it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you want more fact videos, then make sure to click on the 10 best Evan Mobley facts ranked next to keep watching.